Good day and welcome to another episode of Solving Mathematics brought to you by Distinct Academy. So today we are going to look at these financial maths questions. It's a couple of questions. They add up, I think, to about 24 marks. And we are going to do this in two parts. So this first video will cover 3 questions, and then part 2 will be covered in a separate video. So you will see already I have written some stuff using this formula here. I don't want us to use this future value thing. This is misleading. So this represents the book value. So FV in this case would represent the book value, and then this PV would represent the purchase value. It will represent the purchase value, and then N will represent the term, and I will represent the interest rate. So if you read the question together with me, say a computer is purchased for 16,000 Rand, it depreciates at 15% per annum. Determine the book value of the computer after 3 years of depreciation. If depreciation is calculated according to a straight line method. So a straight line method is represented by this formula that I've written for us here. So we will just have to plug in some values into the formula. Already we have the 16,000, which is our purchase value. We have the 15% per annum, which is the interest rate, or rather the depreciation rate. And then we have the term that is 3 years. So this is almost pretty straightforward. So we are going to say the book value represented by FV is equal to 16,000 open bracket 1 minus 15% can be written as 0.15, and then we are going to multiply this by N, which is in this case 3 years. Therefore, this is going to be equal to, if we then type into our calculator, what is 1 minus 0.15 times 3? What does that give us? That gives us 0.55. So in this case, we'll have 16,000 multiplied by 0.55. This will give us, if you plug into your calculator, I believe this will give us 8,800 in, oh yeah, 8,800 actually. 8,800. That is the answer. So this is our book value. So if you already calculated this before we solved it, you can clap hands for yourself or pat yourself on the back. You got it right. So we are going to move on to the next question, that is 6.1.2. So if we read the question, reads as follows: find the rate according to the reducing balance method. So they are saying we should find a rate according to the reducing balance method that would yield the same book value as in question 6.1.1 after 3 years. So basically they want to know that when we use a different method, remember in the first question we used the straight line method, now they want us to use the reducing balance method, but they want us to find the interest rate that would be able to give us the book value that we found in the previous question. So we need to understand the formula first that we are going to use here for the reducing balance method. So I'm just gonna go to the left of my screen just to create space for the next question. So if I can just put a divider here, that wasn't necessary. 6.1 1.2. So in 6.1.2, firstly, we will use the formula for the reducing balance, which I can represent as FV equal to PV, then 1 minus I to the power n. So this is the formula for the reducing balance method. FV still represents our book value, PV still represents our purchase value, I interest rate, and term, just like the previous question we answered. So now we have our book value, which is given by 8,800. This is equal to the purchase value, which is 16,000. And then we have 1 minus I. Remember, I is what we are looking for. We want to know what the interest rate is. And then this would be 3. So to solve this, we can go ahead and divide here by 16,000. Also divide on our right hand side by 16,000. So this would give us, if you can type in on your calculator, let's see what do we have. Actually, let's just do it like this for now. So we will have 88 divided by 160. This would be equal to 1 minus I to the power of 3. And then we will then have, if we want to remove the 3, we can use a cube root on both sides. And if we apply a cube root on both sides, on the right hand side, we will be left with 1 minus the interest rate. And then on the right hand side, we'll remain with the cube root of 88 over 160. I'm just avoiding to be using my calculator. At this point, you could type it in and use it as decimals or simplify it. But I will leave it for the sake of this video. So what I will do here is I'll take my interest rate represented by I and take it to the left, and then the sign will change to positive from the negative, and then I will leave the 1 here and I will take the cube root to the right hand side, and then I'll have 88 divided by 160. So if we just type in this in our calculator, so we'll have 1 minus the cube root of, I'm struggling to do the cube root. Okay, the cube root of 88 divided by 160. So that gave me 0.1806 7 and some value. So we'll leave it here for the sake of this video. And then if you want to write this as a percentage, you can multiply this by 100, which will then give us 18%, or rather to 2 decimal places, it will be 18.07%. So in this case, I typed in the whole value. So you might have gotten a different answer if you used decimals already from this step here. But if you follow through correctly according to the way we did it here, your answer should be around about 18. So this is our answer. So we will move on to the next question. I hope you guys are still following and enjoying this lesson. So now we move on to 6.2. So that's question 6.2 for 4 marks. This is an interesting question. So they are saying Peter invests 12,500 for 5 years. Maybe let me just highlight that. 12,500 for 5 years at 12% annum compounded monthly. This is important. For the first 2 years, they say, and 14% per annum compounded semi-annually. 14% per annum compounded semi-annually for the next 3 years. How much will Peter receive in total after 5 years? So this one, I would like us to use a timeline so that we can be able to see a picture of what is happening here. So our timeline can be drawn like this. So I'm gonna put T5 here, which represents the 5th year, end of the 5th year. I'm gonna put T0 here. Then I'm gonna have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this will be T1, end of the 1st year, T2, end of the 2nd year, T3, end of the 3rd year, T4, end of the 4th year, and then T5, which is the end of the 5th year we already have. So they are telling us that, maybe let me just use a different color, yellow, blue, whichever. So for the first 2 years, we are told that Peter invests at 12%, and this 12% is per annum compounded monthly. And then for the last 3 years, he invests at a different rate, which is 14% per annum compounded semi-annually. So I'm just gonna need more space so that we can be able to break down this. So for so how we'll do this one is let me just change my color back to the red color. So this is 6.2 that we are solving here. So I'm just gonna introduce you to a formula. Some of you might already know it if you've already been taught this chapter on financial mathematics. When I use A equal to P bracket, then I'm gonna put plus I over M to the power of M multiplied by N. Different books could represent this differently, but the format of the formula is still the same. So in this case, A will represent our accumulated value. Accumulated value, accumulated value. And then P will be our present value, the invested amount. P is the present value slash invested amount. And then I is the interest rate per annum, right? But because they are compounded monthly or semi-annually, that's what this M represents. If it's compounded monthly, our M will be equal to 12. If it's compounded semi-annually, our M will be equal to 2, because when we say semi-annually, it means twice per year, right? It's twice per year. So N still represents our term. right? And in this case, our term will be adjusted depending on what interest rate we are looking at, depending on the period, because we have divided our total term of investment into two periods, which is the first 2 years to cover the 12% and the last 3 years to cover the 14%. So let's go ahead and tackle this question. So using the given formula, I would like to just use it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to plug in the values into the formula. I'm going to use the formula just once. But for the purpose of just following it step by step, another person would want to take it step by step, like do the first part for the first 2 years and then do the second part separately. But for the purposes of this video, I will do it all at once. So you'll see what I mean. I'll say A will be equal to, P is equal to what? 12,500. And then using that formula for the first 2 years, I'll say 1 plus 12%. What is 12%? It's 0.12 divided by 12 in this case because it's monthly. And then we'll have that 12 here, we'll multiply it by 2 because it's the first 2 years. And then this whole amount, right? This whole amount after earning interest will still be accumulated for another 3 years because this whole investment is for 5 years. So we'll have 1 plus, someone said it, 1 plus 0.14 divided by 2. So this 1.4 is the 14%. This 2 is the term for the last 3 years. That's semi-annually. And then we'll have to the power 2 times the number of years, which is 3. So when you get here, you can now use your lovely calculator and you can type in this whole thing in your calculator to find out what it is. Or maybe let's just do it. 12,500 is equal to, okay, 12,500 in brackets. Then I'll type in that. I'll say 1 plus 0.12 divided by 12 to the power of 12 times 2. That gives us 1.267. Couple of decimal for this. In this case, I'll just leave it to 4. And then the other one will be 1 plus 0.14 divided by 2 raised to the power 2 times 3. So this one gives us 1.500. Hope I'm doing it correctly. I'm just writing it to 4 decimal places. I normally just want to use all my values. That's why in my answer, you might notice some difference because I've plugged it in my calculator as written here in this line. So the answer to this will be, this is in rands, so it will be, how much is it? 23,000, 23,800, 100 and, oh, what did I just say? Am I failing to call out this amount? It's 23,819.12 cents. That's it. If you got a slightly different answer due to your rounding, it should still be correct. But yeah, I've just used the whole thing that we wrote here, and just type this into the calculator. I just like my answers to be accurate. So there we go, guys. We have covered all the questions for part one of our financial mathematics question. I hope you enjoyed this session. And if you have any questions that you'd like to throw at us, you can just type them in the comment section and we would respond to you. Have a great day.